Good morning, everyone. So if you saw one of my other videos that I posted, it was on this little build here where I did my king crab custom that I was really happy with. He's a tiny little guy. I mean, you can see, unless you just assume that I have giant hands, which I do, but that's not the point, because this model is a small model. Let's bring some things into scale to show the size of the model. It's a small model. It was a fun little project, you know, little afternoon project, if you will. But it was really cool, right? And I really like this design. I've been playing BattleTech now. I had my first desktop, like tabletop session of BattleTech the other day. We will be playing more. Since then, I've been just like looking at BattleTech mechs that I like, and I really like King Crab. I'm reading like its specs and shit, and it's a tank. It's definitely like my kind of robot. You know, when I play Warframe, I play Run F Prime, I play a big tank that hits hard. This is a big tank that hits hard. And so yeah, I think this is the one that I'll probably end up wanting to use when I play more. And then I started playing Mech Warrior 5, and right in the intro, there's King Crab stomping shit, and it's really fucking cool. So it's in that game too, and I'm playing that, and that's really neat. I don't know how I'm really going to feel about it, like long-term wise. I'm just kind of starting it. I've heard it's kind of enough for everybody because it's a full-on like sim, if you will. Like, you damage your mech, you literally have to save up money and pay for it. But I'm trying it out. You know, I want something with some depth, and it looks like it's going to give me that. Whether I'll be good at it or not will probably determine how long I stick with it. But I'm going to try to dabble in it. Whether it means I just have to play the tutorial a lot until I really get the feel of things. It's a little weird because just like in the tabletop game, it's like the legs go in one direction, but the body can point at the other. And movement's a little weird to get used to at first because it doesn't walk like a person walks. So, you know, you can be like legs turn that way, and then you're like sideways walking, but your body's facing this way, so you can strafe, which has its advantages in battle, you know, because you can just be running away, but also like aiming and shooting straight and shit. So that's a little weird to get used to. That may be the hardest thing for me to get used to in the gameplay of stuff. We're gonna try it out. But yeah, this is King Crab. I'm digging this enough, and I had enough fun with this. And then there's another thing to factor in, is that for a couple of my friends, my buddy RC Man and Zero Ronin, they both got kits from me. They both got some Titanfall kits to work on, and I really wanted to kind of pair up with them and do something because it's their first like big resin kit kind of thing. They've never tackled anything of that type and scale. And I'm like, you know, I was gonna already like give them tips and tricks and help them out and kind of explain how to do certain things or how to navigate what they wanted to do in the process. But ultimately, whenever you're doing stuff like that, best case scenario is to get into parity. And it's like, Titanfall is cool, but it's not really my thing, mainly because I haven't played Titanfall and I don't have that attachment that they do for that. But I think I really dig this. So like, what's the solution? Big fucking kit of that. You ready for this? Big fucking reveal. I found and I'm making a massive resin kit of King Crab. It's technically going to be at like 172-ish scale because I went to Game Body, where you get these like really cool detailed, you know, basically printable kits. And there's like a filament print version of it, which I thought about doing it in filament. It's just the removal of supports is such a bitch, and I don't know how I feel about my ability to get it clean, or whether I mean I could. It's just like, I don't know how much time I want to really spend cleaning off another filament print. My hands got so shredded working on that helmet the other day that I guess resin's the way to go. And I mean, I bought a Mono X so I can print big, and it's like, you bought the machine to print big on the machine the way you wanted to do. So I took the file came with filament friendly print files and then resin friendly print files. So I used the resin-friendly print files, and then I scaled it up to 130%, so bigger than it was intended to be printed. I want a big fucking robot. King Crab's a big robot. Let's actually make it big. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make a big-ass King Crab. This thing's gonna be monstrous. As you can see, obviously, I mean, look at it. Look at this fucking thing. Look at how the foot is as big as the entire robot of the other one I made. So where we're at right now is I printed the hull. I printed, there's the waist, and then the little like hip joints, and then the actual leg themselves, and the footsies. And then if we look up on G2 Box, I'm about to start the end of the print, which is, I like this camera, but the zoom is really funky when you hop back and forth. Anyway, I've got the shoulder joints, the hands, and then, you know, the crab claws are opposable on this big ass one. So that should be the final plate. I don't know when I'm actually going to get to painting this, because this is going to be a whole thing. And again, I want to wait until those guys are at least ready for their projects so we can just kind of work together. There's a lot of things that need to be done with a resin kit, and that's another reason I'm making this video, is they can also use this as a reference video. Now, a lot of these print parts I printed hollow for a couple reasons, one of which, this is a lot of resin, even hollowed out. It would be very expensive to print these things unhollow. Also, with this scale, with these larger printers like the Mono X's, you literally just have to deal with the mass of the part. When you're printing a leg this big and you don't hollow it, this is already heavy, even though it's hollowed. It's so much heavier, obviously, when it's not hollow, that you're running a higher risk of it delaminating and suctioning off the plate and failed prints, and, you know, when it fails, when it's not hollow, you're wasting even more of your resin. So it's just so many reasons to hollow these out. And I mean, there's a happy medium. Like when I hollow these pieces, I make sure the walls are pretty thick, so they're still pretty durable. I mean, there's some parts that part of this process is shit's going to break, just so you know. And I mean, like, I told my dudes, like, when I sent them their shit, I printed twice as many fingers as the model has, because I'm like, I know you're gonna break fingers, and that's okay. And then if you break stuff, let me know, I'll make you more for our group project here. But just go ahead and assume you're going to send multiple parts, just in case. I mean, I'm here, I don't have to print multiple parts for me. If I fuck it up, I get on stairs and I make more. I've already broken off a piece. I don't know what this little Jim Bobber is here from the back, but it already fucking broke off that I'll have to re-glue on. That's fine, not a big deal. But as far as like what I have to do for processing work, which I will probably go ahead and start, when you hollow a part, you do have to make drainage holes, so that way any resin that's in the middle of the hollow part as it is printing has a escape path out back into the resin tray, and when you are processing the part, so you can, what was I gonna say? Like, the main thing with these drainage holes also is, like, they got to really be sufficient, because like I had a T-Rex I printed like a couple years ago. I didn't do a good, oh god damn it, yeah, I'm gonna have to clean that off. And this is a prime example of why you gotta do what you gotta do. These fuckers are gonna need to be cleaned off or cleaned out, because there's still resin in the inside of them. The primary reason is, like, with that T-Rex that I did back in the day, I printed it, I didn't do a good enough job of draining it. There was still a sufficient amount of resin inside. What you have to understand, all right, you're just gonna have to walk with me because I gotta clean this off my fucking table. What you have to understand with resin prints is that, or resin printing is that, one, it's curing. Part of the byproduct of the chemical reaction is heat. It gets hot. Like, I have literally, back in the day when I did these and I didn't have like a fancy cure station, you know, I would use a UV light to do stuff, and like, I've literally held a UV light on the resin parts when they're curing, and I've seen them smoke. They get so hot that I mean smoke or steam. Smoke or steam is rising off the fucking things when they get so hot if you're like really like cranking up the light and cure time on them. So they produce a lot of heat. So let's just say you're me and you put that T-Rex together, and then you've got it all, you know, adhered with epoxy and shit, and then it sits on your desk in the sun, and you don't paint it immediately, but it sits on your desk in the sun, and some light is penetrating through those walls over time, and it's slowly curing them. You've got a grenade. Like, it's building up heat and pressure as it does that. And one day I come in and the model is literally split open, and there's like liquid resin all over my fucking table. And like, you know, that model, in my opinion, was essentially ruined. I could spend a lot of time fixing it, but at that point, it was such a bad vibe that I'm just like, I gave it to somebody else to make it their pet project. But the lesson learned here is you really need to make sure that these hollow parts are cleaned out. Like, those other parts over there are going to get another alcohol bath to make sure they're just really cleaned out, or you'll end up with a grenade. And then once you are clean, the other part is these little holes need to be filled and processed. That's an easy process, in my opinion. It's just a matter of super glue and baking soda down in there, and you sand it. And then, you know, we'll have to use a sander bit to get rid of these little pock marks, which that's an easy process too, that I can tell you. Like, a lot of people kind of freak out about this, and I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. This shit right here will take care of that. These little buffer bits from Dremels will knock those off real good. So that'll take care of that. Now, resin is really toxic. So make sure when you do that, you're doing so with ventilation. I will be doing it in my airbrush booth. I will be wearing PPE, wear a fucking mask so you don't inhale that powder. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're gonna do. I may work on that today. Like, I haven't been able to do a lot of craft stuff in downtime. It's been a very busy week for me, so I have a lot of things I want to work on today, and this will be a craft heavy day. Fortunately for you, the viewer, that'll be a lot of stuff in the video, because the other thing I'm working on, finally getting around to painting these ferrules. I'm really excited for this too. So yeah, I'll probably have this in the video today too. So what we'll be doing with these is, like, I'm doing a lot of speed paint stuff. Or is that what they're called? What is that shit called? It's called speed paint. I'm sorry. God, I have really bad indigestion this morning. Anyway, I don't use just 100% speed paint on everything all the time, but I do find that it has its purposes for some stuff, right? And so, like, for predators, because this is definitely not the first predator that I've done with speed paint stuff, the specific applications I like for the speed paints is I like using the Grim Black for the dreads, because it doesn't make the dreads entirely black. It, like, makes the, you know, the creases darker. And the reason I don't want my dreads entirely black is because you wouldn't see them. They wouldn't have depth and volume. And as you can see here, it was a quick and easy paint that gave the dreads depth and volume and basically drew lines around the parts. Same thing with the helmets here. I used, I think, Pallid Bone for the helmets, which, see, it did the same concept, because these helmets have these little, like, ridges where the bones are, like, fused together like a real skull does. And it gave those a lot of depth and gave them some kind of, like, looks like line work, if you will. And then the skin for these, I always do things differently on the skin, because in the predator mythology they're all like different sub races and shit. So, but for these guys, I don't know why this time I just felt like I wanted to do like a brighter, more of a yellowier color. So I actually used something different here. I used the War Paints Effects Disgusting Slime and just watered it down pretty good so it's pretty thin, and then did a coat because it's pretty bright and vivid. And I know once I do the details, that bright and vividness will pop against whatever darker hue. And I don't know exactly how I want to do the darker hues yet, because I've done some shit before with the speed paints that I really liked and pulled off. I'm gonna find the one in particular that I have in mind to show you. I'm looking for, is that him? I think that's him. There's a predator that's like a Xeno hunter. I essentially did like two different colors, if you will, where I painted him like a almost like a really creamy color, and then use, I think, either a blue wash or a blue speed paint, but essentially, like, it gave him like blue line work and just came out so fucking cool. But if I can pick a nice contrast, which I really like the effect that happened here, and do this again with a different shade, is like I can really get some nice contrasts without having to like do a lot of line work. Now, part of what you're seeing on this too is that, like, predators always have these kind of little like freckles. That is just literally simply a Sakura pen, I think they're called. This guy right here. This is one of my amazing tricks that I stole from somebody else. These Micron 005s. One of the many uses they have for minis is doing freckles on predators, because it's so much easier to do than a pen, and it looks really good. And that's, end result is all I give a shit about personally. Makes a nice end result. It looks really nice on a table. So, you know, I'm always doing the freckles with the 005 pens on the predators moving forward now, just because it has such a nice look. I have no idea what color I'm going to do the armor. I'm thinking more of an earth tone with these ferrules, because they are, you know, a more naturistic tribe. And then you can see in the back there, oh, we got some super predators. I don't know what I want to do with them yet. I don't think I really want to make them movie accurate. I definitely could. That's not hard to do. But, like, I don't know. Maybe I want to kind of take a little artistic license with them, because I've got the tracker. I've got the falconer. And this is a berserker back there. I just haven't even started on a base for him. I don't have a base printed yet. Might do that here in a bit. But these fellas, I'll do. I would like to think I could knock out all these predators today. Let's just see what kind of a zone I get locked into. Because I'm just kind of like, I've gotten to where I'm juggling less projects overall, but there still has to be a time for me to where it's like I'm getting kind of tired of the monotony of doing Gundams over and over again. So I need a little vacation. I need a paintcation to where I'm doing more like mini type work, which this still is technically kind of like mini type work, because this whole thing's going to get hand painted. Although, actually, let me go back to what I was going to say with this. we were talking about what we wanted to do with this morning, and I was thinking I might do a different color scheme, but like maybe I think I technically should make him like a big version of my little guy and do that trick that I did with the spray paint, which, you know, we'll get to that when we do the project. But essentially that, but with weathering, you know, because of this larger scale, I can Dremel some damage on this thing and make it look realistically weathered. Oh, other thing too, which I didn't want to jump around too much, but I just made some terrain for the tabletop BattleTech, because we had like one of these. I had this on my table the other day as a piece of terrain, and I'm like, man, I want more buildings. And these were so cheap and easy to make. It was just like the terrain that I did for like the RPG tiles a couple videos ago. It was just very little amount of filament. They're hollow, almost no support removal work. You just cut the skirt off with a box cutter, and boom. And even the paint app for these, I'll probably keep it real simple. Probably just to spray paint and then paint some highlights. Maybe do them windows or something. But yeah, I got some buildings from our next sesh, and I really ought to consider, you know, these are what we played with the other day. These are the two guys that we used in our campaign. Really, I ought to probably think about a paint scheme for them. If I don't do it today, just think on it and figure this guy out too, because that's another dope one that I don't know much about. I just printed it because it looked cool, right? Just like I painted. I'm not gonna bullshit you. I printed and painted King Crab because he looked cool. I didn't know anything about him until I looked him up, and I was like, oh, this is a legit mech with stats and such. So this is how the day is starting. Yeah, once I hop off the video here, I'm gonna do my morning shit and do my exercise and things. I'll probably go ahead and print another base for Berserker here, get that rolling. And no real game plan here other than just doing stuff, so we're just gonna roll with where the day takes us. I don't really have to go leave the house and do shit, so I'd like to have a craft heavy day today. So this is the beginning of the video, and we'll be back. I'm so aggravated. I just dropped fortunately it was powered off. I just dropped my Dremel on my foot and it fucking hurt. But what I'm doing here is, you know, I've got the parts printed, and there were 4 drainage holes here for the resin. I filled them with super glue and baking soda, and now I'm kind of Dremeling them smooth, and I'll probably do another pass, because as you can see, there's still a bit of a hole there until we get like a fully smooth. Like this one's probably pretty much good to go here, because we just got to go back over it and smooth it with like a finer Dremel bit, like that little polished dude I showed you for the bumps. Maybe able to be enough. I can't emphasize this enough, as I said in the previous video, that you really got to make sure these sons of bitches drain out, because I had a gut feeling, and I went and I looked at my file as it was on the print plate in the program, and saw that I hollowed these parts out, but the ball joints, the ball was hollow, and it doesn't drain out anywhere. So after I printed it, I needed to go back in and drill additional holes, let that filament or let the resin drip out, clean it out. I ran it through like 20 more minutes in the damn wash machine, the wash and cure machine, and, you know, alcohol and then soapy water, and really just try to knock as much off as possible. I still probably don't have it all in there. That's actually not wet. That's just how it dries. If it has leaked prior, it'll dry shiny, and we can fix that. That's fine. What we can't fix is if there's a bunch of resin trapped in here and it builds up pressure and heat from curing and explodes. So that's our goal here. But this one, I just kind of want to leave it in the sun just to make sure that I went even further into it with a Dremel and really just broke up supports on the inside to make sure that air and shit was getting all into there. Ran this for another pass in the wash just to really make sure I did a good enough job of rinsing any resin out of it with my distilled water and alcohol, and then soaped it and just kept hitting it. So it should be, in theory, pretty good. But again, just like, it doesn't hurt to keep going the extra mile. So I'm gonna leave these in the window in the sun, even though there's not much sun today. Really make sure these things are dry on the inside, because I don't want to fucking fool with that. Like, I'm going to be very upset if I put a lot of work into this and it pops and leaks resin. I'm very, very unhappy. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I'll keep working on this, and then I'll do, I guess, another video once I've done another round of the glue and the baking soda and polished it smooth. I'll do another video. And what we're aiming for, and I've mentioned this before, is if you're going to paint anything, If you run the back of your fingernail over it, you don't feel a bump with the back of your fingernail, you should be fine not showing up from paint. I mean, that may not be the most perfect method in the world, but it's a good place to start. And again, I'm just getting these parts today into a ready to assemble and paint place, and then, you know, I'm getting ready to paint these dudes here once I hit another dry point on that, like while it has to sit in front of the fan and dry. And I decided the next thing for these is for the 2 Super Predators, I'm going to use, I think this might be the move, is to use the speed paint for the skin because it does such a nice job with recesses and shit. These guys are going to be a different flesh tone than the primals. They're going to get like the hardened leather brown, because if I don't want to like rip off the movie 100%, but I feel like I recall in my head that they were kind of a darker skin tone in the movie. And that at least looked good. I'm not trying to copy it because it's what the movie did, but I feel like seeing them in the movie with kind of a darker skin looked good. And it looks good in my head right now, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to paint those dudes. And I still got to figure out, I don't know what color I want to do this armor with these guys. I still haven't decided yet, you know. I'll think about that while I'm painting these other dudes. I got to figure out what their armor color is going to be too, so we'll think about it. Maybe when I come back for the next video, I'll have thought of it. I don't know. We'll see. Hello, it's me again. Back here after I did the thing, and I can tell you it's not going to be perfect. I can tell you I'm not that much of a shit giver about this because it's underneath my mech, and I'm also not doing a candy shell. I'm doing a weathered build. Now, if you zoom in, those are little support marks. I'm kind of trying to knock those off, right? Because in some places you will not see them even though there were supports there, because I did as I stated and used the little, let me show you the little thing that I fucking use. I got a big bag of them off of like Amazon. These little scrub bobbers, they won't, you know, they do a good enough job to knock those support marks, those pock marks off. But what they don't do is they will not knock off like the rivet. Like if I tried to use the actual like sanding bit or a grinding bit, those would be gone, and we don't want that. We want those to stay, because I've run them over some places on the model where there were rivets. Where did I do it? I know I did it because I was like looking at when I did it. I'm like, well, will this fuck it up? I wanted a good way to show you. I don't remember. You just have to take my word for it, I guess. What I'm gonna do though is I'm gonna run that little buffer a little more and try to knock off a good majority of those bits, because even though it will be weathered, and in some places I guess those pockmarks would almost work as a good weatherification, it's not the look that I want, so I'm going to kind of keep going at them, knock more of them off. What I'm going to do, I had an idea, is like I want to see how it would actually look with some paint on it. Like when I rub my nail on it, I can kind of feel it. I can already tell you like what's going to happen. I can tell you when I do what I'm going to do, I'm going to see areas. But again, it's underneath my mech. Don't give that much of a shit. When we get to the limbs, I'm going to give a lot more of a shit. I'm going to spray it with some fucking $2 black spray paint, and then we'll actually see what it looks like, because there's coloration from the stuff that lets you see that what I did there, which will not be visible with paint on top. So fuck it, let's see what it looks like with some $2 spray paint, and then I mean we're just gonna keep sanding. I don't give a shit, you know, until we get our satisfactory result. Okay, I lied to you. I did not use the $2 spray paint, but I didn't lie to you. I changed my mind because I forgot after I'd started to do the thing. I was like, oh yeah, I have sandable primer, and it'd probably be better to not gunk up my doodad if I decided I did need to sand it further. Now, as I stated, it was pretty much as I expected, where there are some ripples, right? Now, if this is like a part of the thigh that's facing upwards where the viewer's going to see that, that's not going to jive well. That's not cool. But since this is the underside of the model, A, and B, I'm going to do some weathering on the underside, because I have to think if this thing's tromping around and mud and shit gets stuck up underneath of the mech, that there could be some rusting could occur, so I can actually just damage that up a little bit underneath the body. So for me, that's fine. But the other important thing is, see how there's like, you don't really see the fucking pock marks anymore, because I just went behind it with that brush thing I showed you, and it just took that shit right off there. Pretty awesome, you know. So that's a tool that I didn't discover until a lot of printing, that I was like, oh, this will actually get the fucking panels not all pocked up. And it was just a chance coincidence one day, because I bought them and they didn't do whatever I needed to do for whatever the hell I bought them for. But then one day I tried them out on the pockmarks from Resin Supports, and hey, they're gone. Works really good for filament supports too, so that's cool. But yeah, so we're pretty good on this piece then, because I mean this was facing up. There's no support work to be cleaned up. The rest of them little shits over there in the window, I might decide I want to like leave them there for a while just to let the sun make sure that they're okay, because I don't know. But in the meantime, you know, I've been trucking along on this Predator, and I use the speed paints on the flesh. When you paint these things, don't worry about making a mess over the parts you're going to paint on top of. So you really just want to like hit your little spots that you want to hit, and then, you know, afterward, you know, you're putting paint on top of the fucking armor, so who cares if it's a little messy. I didn't understand that at first, but now I understand that. But as you can see, I really, that's what you get out of hardened leather for the skin. I really like the golden brown tone that I get on it. This is what I had in mind for this Predator. And I like how it does get into those little contours and give some nice depth on the rippling of the muscles and the like meat folds on his talons. Really, it's going to be a cool look, I think. Still have no idea what I want to do for any of the armor, but I can think about it while I use the same skin tone on the Tracker Predator. So keeping on. Okay, so real fast on this video, the next thing I want to do, because I think I've done all I want to cover on this video with the big model of the mech, is I'm going to show you like some step-by-steps on the Predator stuff that I'm doing, because I'm just doing a big batch of them. I'm just feeling that today. And I just started, I just went and I printed a base for the Berserker of the 3 of the Predators. So I'm going to use it as the opportunity just to beginning to end one of these to show you guys how I do this. So that's going to be the rest of this video, I think, and hopefully that'll be enough for what I want this video to be, and then I can put it out. So we're going to start there next. So okay, so step 1 of doing the Predators, I always prefer to start with the dreads. Now with painting dreads on the Predators, they're of course going to be black. The difficult thing with black paint is it's hard to have like good dynamics so you can see the outlines as you do with this one here. And the way I pull that off specifically is using this speed paint stuff. I use the Grim Black on the dreads. That's where we start with the Berserker here and give it the dreads. You just start with there. It'll be a little messy, but don't worry about that, because we're going to be painting around that and we'll clean it up after. Okay, so we're back, and the next thing I did for these particular guys is I'm doing more of a darker skin tone for them. I have in mind kind of like, I feel like they're probably more from like a desert climate, so they're going to have like a darker skin tone to protect against the sun. They're going to be leaner. I'm thinking like the primal dudes are going to be like savanna, so maybe not quite as harsh, kind of. But anyway, to achieve this, speed paint hardened leather. Now for the armor, I'm going to do basically what I've done here, which is it's just black paint. It's kind of watered down, so it is not the darkest black. But because of that, on the armor areas, I'm not really going to have to overpaint, other than I'm just going to have to do the black paint. However, I did get a little messy on some of the clothing pieces here, and because of that, I will probably do some cleanup work with some white paint, since this is a white primer, over some little spots. But yeah, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the black over the armor, and I'm doing that because I'm going to be using some metallics from Turbo Dork that say to do it over a black undercoat or a black base coat. So that is what we are going to do. So I'll do that. Oh, actually, real quick, I'm sorry. There'll be one little tiny little mini extra step, because with the bone here, their helmets are entirely bone. Berserker in particular, his jaw is bone, but the rest of his stuff is not. So I am going to real quick actually going to do some, what did I use for that? Oh, I swear to God, this is not going to be entirely speed paint, but for the jawbone part, I'm going to use the pallid bone Turbo Dork on the jaw, and then black on the rest of the metal armor plates, and then we'll figure out a scheme. I don't know how we're going to do the clothier part of their clothing stuff yet, but we'll do that when we get to that. Okay, so here we are on the next step here. Now all of the Predators are at the same stage, essentially, to where the dreadlocks are painted on all of them. The armor is primed with a black base coat that I want to have like a certain color. Now the ferrules are different because they have a bone helmet. That's fine. So they get a little bit of a different treatment with this. There's some metallic things that I'm going to do metallic, so they'll be different. That's why they're not primed with that way, because there's going to be more of a variety of color in all this stuff here that you're seeing. The other thing to discuss as well is, like, did a little bit of cleanup work, and again, I didn't really get that in depth with the cleanup work. Like, you can see that brown on his like little kilt thing there, and that's fine to an extent, because I'm ultimately probably going to figure out some sort of a speed paint wash to do kind of a cloth color for all of them, and I will probably keep that uniform. I do need to find one that does do that, but also not. There's so many of them that have like bones and skulls and shit. I need to find a color for that will be different, so it doesn't look the same as the cloth. So that's kind of the next step in this process, is the little clothy bits. I'm still just kind of sticking to the base colors before we start to do additional layers of all this stuff on top of it. But that's kind of where we are with this. Everyone's kind of on that same spot of progress. You know, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do exactly with the beads on the dreads, because I always do something a little different with them. I just don't know yet, and that's fine. But yeah, that's kind of where we are. And then we did a lot of little mini details, because the mini details I do last. Like, for example, the separate colors on the feathers of some of these that have feathers will get different colors, but that's an accent thing that will be done kind of towards the end, as well as like the toenails. And then, you know, maybe some mandible colors. I started to just fool around with a couple of these and gave them, I'm trying to find one where I actually did it. Yeah, I started to kind of fool around with some of these. I don't know why. I tried to see what it would look like with the black pen, and it just, not feeling it. It needs to be like kind of maybe a white color, an off-white for the teeth, which maybe I'll end up doing for the talons as well, because I don't know how I feel about experimenting with black on a couple of these earlier yesterday. And we'll come back and revisit that and think about that when we get to that point, because this was not me attempting to do any kind of a final thing. This was me just kind of testing the waters as I had a moment while other stuff was happening. So I guess next step will be finding colors for the cloth stuff, doing the cloth stuff, and then we'll come back after that. But yeah, now they're all at the same level, so we can do them kind of all at once for all the process, because I had to, Berserker was completely untouched this morning, so I had to catch him up at least to where the other two Super Predators were, and now all the Super Predators are on the same level of completion. It's all in the same spot. So anyway, to be continued. Alright, so we're back, and the option we ended up choosing was not one color for the cloth, was a lot of colors. I chose several things, like the greenish of a lot of the cloth is camo cloak. One thing that aggravates me about the speed paints is the picture of the sticker is not accurate to the color that you get on your model, but I didn't mind so much because I wanted a little bit of randomness in the color that I'm applying. Because we're still in base coat phase anyway, I'm going to be doing some altering of the color based on what I paint on top of it. For the skeleton stuff, I just went for pallid bone the same way I did the helmets, because I mean it's the bone for that. It made sense to match with the bones, so easy enough. Runic gray for a lot of the kind of gladiator looking jobbies that they're wearing there. Gravelord gray as well. There was like kind of a variation of it I added in there. Again, just more variety in color for more, what's the word I'm looking for? Variety. And then Zealot yellow I used for these little, I don't know what they are. They look like foxtails. Whatever. It made sense on the model, so now I gotta do a little bit more cleanup work. It's a little sloppy, but still gotta do washes as well. I mean, as far as what we have ahead of us is like the actual, like, I'm gonna just do like a metal for some of these blades as opposed to a turbidor color for the armor. You know, that'll be different. The feathers gotta be several different colors on these. The falcon, for the falcon or predator, is going to be just probably some sort of a metal that I choose separately. Still got to pick some colors for the dreadlocks, and we're still only on base colors. As in my other video with the terrain paint, it's kind of the same moral of the story here, which is not that this is hard, there's just a lot of steps to do this stuff. Like, none of this was really hard. A lot of it was sloppy, and that's okay, but you can really see how it's coming together, right? You know, we're slowly getting to a really complete, like, whole army with a lot of detail in it. It's going to be really satisfying when it's done for us. So I'm going to go do all that stuff that I said, and I'll be back. Alright, welcome back to part 45 or wherever we are in this fucking massive video of stuff. And since last, we have done the metallic stuff. So I actually opted for a copper for the weaponry on both, and then just a silver for the dreads right now, because there's more to be done. You can see that detail in the stuff. And yeah, that's where we're going. And then, you know, the hawk, I did the copper because I'm kind of keeping something uniform. Some things will not be uniform, like the Predator's armor color. Fuck, I still gotta figure out what the other, like, Super Predators or armors are, because I know these guys are gonna have green armor. The next thing that I gotta do is some of the Primal Predators have feathers. I'm going to use the blue, purple, and pink for the feathers. Cool, neat, whatever. I'm gonna wash the copper weapons with a red tone. The inside of the one Predator with the open mouth, I'm gonna touch with a little bit of white. And I guess we'll start the absinthe on the Primal Predator's armor and figure out what metallic color I want on the Super Predator's armor as well. I think that'll be the good next part, because at that point, like, the base colors are pretty much all done at that point, and then we're down to like washes, and then, you know, we can do the bases. I don't know why I do bases last sometimes, but that's what I did today. So be back after that stuff is done. All right, welcome back. Looks like we're getting somewhere, huh? I opted for the kind of brownish red for their armor for the Super Predators. I did give them a little bit of a yellow flash for the eyes. It'll pop more once the washes go on everything. And did the greens for the primals. Did the color for the feathers and that stuff. That's all. Everything here is getting washed. It's pretty much at this point. We're still just layering shit on. But up next, I'll do washes over the turbo dork so you can actually see the detail a lot better, because as amazing as turbo dork is, sometimes in some projects you need to kind of give it a little help. And the way I'm going to give it a little help is I'm actually going to try to probably either do one or both things of either speed paint, washes, or both. Because the speed paint kind of behaves like a wash. Where the fuck? Hold on, I have my color set aside. I was going to just go ahead and show you. I mean, okay, there we go. For the green, I don't know, I'm going to try probably first. I'm going to see what it does with green tone by itself. If it doesn't pop as much as I want to, I'll cover it, or I'll coat it. I'll hit it with some plasmatic bolt. For the Super Preds, I'm going to do the red tone, and then whatever the hell the red's called up there, because I didn't take the time to grab it yet, but we'll be back and see how that turns out. All right, and as we come to a stopping point for the evening, day, here we are. I opted for the red, and I tried the washes, but they just weren't as vivid as I wanted them to be, so I did actually just use the freaking speed paints as a wash. But, I mean, you see why. I mean, look at that. So, yeah, I got a nice vivid red on these guys. And then, same thing with these. I mean, I tried with the green wash. The green wash was okay. But, man, speed paints over top of the turbo dork really makes that green pop like a freaking emerald. There's still a good bit of work left to do. I mean, I painted and then hit washes on the feathers, on a couple of the feathers of the feathered predators. Yeah, I think if I did anything else since the last step, that's pretty much it. But there's a lot more wash work to be done. Obviously, the bases still have to be done. The little freckles need to be done with the Micron pens. I don't know if I want to do any kind of like blood or dirt on these yet either. Definitely would, you know, give it more detail. But it's just going to get more and more intense as you go. It's a lot of work to put into these guys to really make them have the detail that I want. But you can see the payoff is going to be there. It's slowly showing up in these. But it's going to be a nice addition to my giant collection of mini Predators. So I don't know if I'll have time tomorrow to do it or Sunday, but next shooting session of this, and I'll put it all, it's going to be all in one video here for you guys, but next shooting session, we'll wrap this up, and there should be one video that covers not only the model stuff from earlier, but then all of the Predator stuff as well. And it's really a nice start to finish. So if you want to go buy a 3D print of this from someone, or if you want to 3D print them yourself, you can follow exactly what I did, piece by piece, and make your own the same way I did. Okay, so we are back now, and new day, next step. And as I stated, we're working more on the washes now. And, you know, if I do more tutorials like this, you'll understand that in a lot of my technique, it's a lot of work and a lot of steps that are like, I just want to call it like blind faith, because it's like you're doing this stuff and it doesn't look that impressive. And it's all for a reason, and it all gets you to pay dirt. And this part of the project, we are now getting into pay dirt territory. Because we laid down a lot of the boring base colors, and you know, if you don't do a lot of this kind of stuff, and you're like, it's not looking great, it's just like, have faith. Just have faith. I know there's 30 steps. I done told you there's 30 steps on this shit. And that's where we are, because now we are at the point where we're going to start to hit pay dirt, to where we're going to get something that looks a little more bombastic and exciting, to where, you know, you have a lot of depth and stuff. I went a little heavy on the dark on that, but I have a feeling once I start doing a little more of the washes and stuff on the other parts, it'll kind of even out, so I'm not too stressing on that. And I actually kind of like it, the fact that I have to emphasize his little chest piece armor thing. But yeah, now you're going to start to hit pay dirt, because you've laid down all your base colors, and now you get to the sweet spot. And what we've done essentially is, it was a kind of a, as you can tell, I was experimenting here, is a mixture of a quote-unquote shadow wash with a soft tone. And I was heavier on the shadow wash at first, and I definitely wasn't specific with the primal dudes, because I wanted there to be a punchier contrast on the muscle lines of this, which is what I wanted to pull off with their skin tone specifically. Like, you know, you're seeing, I'm kind of experimenting around where it's like they're not all going to be as consistently as good, but where we've started to find like a sweet spot on some contrasts and stuff as I kind of knock a couple out, sort of thing. And then I kind of went for a little bit. I also did washes, but for a different approach. Because for the super predators, I really wanted to have kind of a burnt look to the skin tone, because in my imagination, I'm thinking of these guys as like just straight up living in like desert volcanic areas, to where like they legitimately like are going to have, you know, kind of more of a toasty look to them. Because, like, you know, when you make art, you kind of have to tell a story in your head to kind of make a narrative, and the narrative will dictate where the art goes. So that's where we're going with that. And you know, that's what we've done with the skin tones. I did on Super Predators, I started a little bit of wash around the eyes. I don't think a wash is going to get me 100% what I want out of the eyes, which is a bright outline of the eyes. So what I'm probably going to have to do here is use a little more of that yellow that I painted them with in the center to make it brighter in the middle, and I'm probably going to just use my .005 Sakura to do just a straight up outline of the eye to really get the punch that I want out of those eyes. So that's where we're going next. But yeah, now we're in wash territory. We're just adding washes, and we're adding layers to stuff. I think I have a brown wash, which is what I'm going to use for the bone helmets and the bones themselves. For the next step, and then, like I said, I'll work on the eyes of these super predators, and then we'll be back after that. Alright, sorry for the god-awful audio on that last section. I don't know what in the world was going on, and hopefully that will not happen again. But anyway, as we discussed earlier, we did the eyeballs. I can zoom in here and show you. I brought the brightness back up and then did some outlines. They're not like perfect, but they're so small it doesn't matter. It's doable. Like, same thing with these guys here. I think they look pretty good. So yeah, no. But that's what we were talking about there. Showing you all of them here. I don't know why I made his eyes beadier. It just made sense in my head. But it looks pretty damn good in my opinion. So anyway, I did that, and then as I stated earlier, you can see with the helmets now there's more of a contrast on the bone stuff, as well as like these skeletons, because I did the brown wash for the bones. Now we're getting better with that, and I guess the next step will be the what was I gonna say? I want to do more of a wash in these dreads, because I don't think that I do want them darker. I like the contrast from the grim dark wash or whatever the fuck it's called, but I want them to be darker. And then we got to do something about these little I don't want to call them fucking little gladiator belt things that some of these guys have. They're just way too light. They look like they've almost only been primed. They need some more action going on with them, so we're gonna darken that down some more. And then I think the next thing, maybe the spots, and that may be pretty much it for the dudes themselves, and then we just got to paint the bases. Now I'm going to tell you with the bases, because consider it under like artistic word I can't think of. I'm going to keep the bases kind of simpler, except for maybe the leader with his special fancy base that he gets. For the most part, I'm probably just going to do in black because I don't want them to be distracting from the actual figure itself. So there'll probably be some sort of a single color or a black for most of these, and then him I'll probably actually do some terrain because he's probably going to be the leader. And you know what, because he is going to be more likely the leader of the primal dudes, I'll probably blue up his dreads a little bit, as the elders tend to have more of a lighter, bluer dread hairstyle. So I think we'll do that for him. Yeah, I believe we're going to do that for him, unless I forget and fuck up, but you know, we'll see how that goes. But also, yeah, when I did the bone, I also made sure to get plenty of wash up in like around the helmet where it touches the face, because that's really a lot of detail that kind of can get hidden if you don't use the wash to make it pop. I'm very happy with this open mouth one here, man. He just absolutely looks vicious. He might be my favorite out of all these for all the stuff going on with him so far. I mean, I already like the sculpt, but I've really been happy. This is only two times have I had predators to paint that had open mouths, and they're among my favorites that I pulled off. And in my opinion, when I look at predator art, the hardest thing to get right on predator art when I see them is someone actually draw the predator and look good with open mouth or predator faces without helmets. I'm very picky about it, and I'm picky about my own stuff, so if I'm happy with it, I'm really happy with it. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's part of the primals is that the lower half of their face is pretty much more or less exposed, and that's very fucking cool. But let's go ahead and do that. Like I said, the next video I'll be I'm trying to think of what all I want to do for that, because it'll basically be, I think the next section of this video will be the predators themselves will be done. So I'll do all the details on the predators to have them done, and then we'll discuss what we did. And I mean, it's what I already told you as far as like the washes and the secure pen and shit. Maybe do what I always do and probably seal the preds up with a fucking matte vinyl or matte coat enamel to protect your work, because we're gonna switch to the bases. I'm gonna make sure that if we have any goofs on the bases, we don't make any messes on all this hard work that we did. So I'll be back. Okay, let's go ahead and roll here. Day 3 or whatever, where we're at. I think I'm pretty much just done with these guys. I'm happy with them. I swear to God, I had to reshoot this because every time I go to shoot a video, fucking notifications go off on my computer and my phone. Fucking me up. Y'all, my friends that texted me, stop fucking up my videos. I love y'all, but shut up. Anyway, so yeah, we got these guys done. I just did some washes on the dreads for them to wrap them up, because I did need to kind of like, you know, the beads just didn't look right without a wash, because they just look like silver blobs until I got the washes done on the cracks of those. They're pretty much done. I decided to not do the stippling on the skin with the pens on these, just to differentiate them from the primals that I've done. So figure wise, these are done. There's going to be one final piece of the video here, and that's going to be the basing. But on to the other dudes, the primal dudes. So they're pretty much done, figure wise. Well, they're done. But anyway, did the stippling on their skin, as you can see there, as well as on the alpha there. I did give him some blue in his dreads, as he is an older predator. I'm going to assume he's alpha because he's on a fancy base, right? So that makes sense to me. So yeah, like I said, just the other thing I did on these, let me see if I can zoom back in here. There's little foxtail looking things that are on some of their skirts. I just need to come up with a name for whatever the fuck they wear for pants. I don't know. I keep calling it everything but pants. Predator pants. I use a mixture of cadmium yellow and white to do some highlights on these things to make them pop even more. Whatever the hell they are, they pop more now. And then like the gladiator, I told you like the gladiator dress part of it just didn't pop very well. It looked like just primed. So I just went ahead and hit them with more shadow wash to darken them up and add some contrast. And now I'm happy with that. Layer of shadow wash whenever everybody's dreads to make them pop more, because they were, even though I want them to be a variety of black and gray, I wanted them still to be darker. And now they are. And now we're good. So yeah, this is the figures are now good. What was I gonna say? Shit. Onto the bases now. This is the final thing. And then, actually, wait a minute. I'm forgetting something. I do need to clear. I'll go ahead and hit these with a matte enamel spray to protect my work. And then I'll paint the bases, and then I'll come back now for most of these bases. And I think I already said this earlier in the video. I think I'm just gonna literally just tag these bad boys with some speed paint, maybe some like black speed paint, and that's it. Because I don't want the bases too distracting from the actual figure. I want all eyes to be on the figure. Who gives a shit about the base? The base is just there to hold the figure. Other than this dude, because he's so super fancy, I'll do a little bit of train work. I'll do some little glue on grass bullshit, and then they'll be done, and that'll be the end of this video. Finally, after like what, 3 fucking days. So I'll be back. All right, and here is the conclusion. And as I was stating in the previous clip, we kept the bases really simple here. All I did for most of these was I did keep them simple, and I just basically used the Grim Black speed paint over the top of the base, and then just hit some kind of dry brushing with a kind of a thicker mix of the Liquitex Black. I did do a fancy base in the middle here, which I'm not doing a tutorial on today. And if you're like, oh, that base looks really cool, why are we not doing an in-depth tutorial? Because A, I don't want this video being longer than 45 minutes, because that's the way it's been trending so far. And B, I'll have a separate video for base tutorials. I've got a larger base printing on my printer right now, and we'll go into depth on doing a lot of these techniques, so that'll be in another video. If you want to see that, we're going to go over that. But same concept with the rest of these here. Just did, you know, the speed paints on the top, and then did the black border. I did switch it up a little bit, but we did still keep it with the speed paints on this one with a larger base. And it was, again, just 2 colors of the speed paint together and then the black border. But that's it. That's pretty much a start to finish on how to do this. So if you go get these files and print them, you can just follow this video step by step. If you guys like this material of like the complete breakdowns of tutorials, I will make more. Just let me know. See you later.